So good afternoon, everyone. Again, it's fantastic to have you all here as part of our May WebEx for the SPSP Medicines program. Today we've got a specific focus around engaging patients in the medicine safety agenda, and it's one of the themes that came out of our February stakeholder engagement event in terms of the key levers that our group and key contacts and key stakeholders identified as one of the things to drive the medicine safety agenda in Scotland. So we're really pleased to have two representatives from NHS Tayside to really share some of the work they've been doing, and I guess it's not recent work, it's been happening for a while in terms of how they've gone about engaging patients in their medicines and their medicines use, particularly through the Patient and Public Forum for Medicines. So before we do get started in terms of this WebEx, I do need to confess to everybody that this is a test. We, as a medicines team, are hosting the WebEx in its entirety, and for those that have been part of the WebEx series before, we've used an external host, BT, to facilitate some of the more interactive parts of the WebEx. So we've taken on the responsibility ourselves today, and we are going to be learning and testing in terms of how we best approach these things. So if there are slight pauses, or there are things that do go a little bit awry, it's because we're learning, and we trust that you'll have patience with us to learn with us. So we really do appreciate you joining us today. So in terms of our WebEx, we do ask that, again, that people have joined the WebEx to also make sure they've dialed in to the phone component of today's WebEx, and we'll ensure that we use the opportunity to hear from you all towards the end of the WebEx. If you're not presenting, i.e. if you're not Arlene or Sue at the moment, we have muted all of your lines before you come on, but we will open towards the end for a question and answer session with the presenters. So as you can see in the chat box, we're really encouraging people to let us know where you're working and what you do. So in order to get involved in that, we ask that you actually use the chat box function in the WebEx. And if for those people that are not familiar with WebEx, you can simply just click on the chat icon, which is the top right-hand corner of the screen. And when you do, ensure that you select all participants or everyone, depending on what your view is. And you can type in, particularly just now, who you are, what you do, and where you do that. So it's fantastic that we've got the two medicines colleagues of mine in the room today. Both Kirsty and Lorraine have managed to use that chat box function to let everybody know who they are. And it'd be great if you could do the same. So in terms of the medicines team, it's my pleasure to introduce Lorraine Donaldson. It's her first WebEx today. So Lorraine has joined us as project officer, and it's great to have you along. So welcome. And for those that have not met the wider team before, Arvin Varela is our national clinical lead. Kirsty Allen, who's with me as well in the office today, our administrative officer, and myself, David Maxwell. So again, it's really great to have Lorraine here and be part of our first test of this WebEx series. So as always, we're really keen to get an idea of the types of people that we've got in on the call with us. So in addition to using the chat box to let us know who you are, we're really keen to use the first polling question of the day to let us know what professions best describe you. So we're asking you to pick from one of the following options, either a patient or a service user, medical, nursing, or pharmacy. And if none of these apply, we're asking you to select other and let us know in the chat box. So thank you, Kirsty, for opening the poll. So if you can, make your selections now, and we'll give you a few seconds, I must say, to let us know who or what profession best describing you. Okay. So I think now the poll is closed, and we'll just ask Kirsty now to display the results to let everybody see the distribution of folk on the WebEx with us today. Okay, and there we go. You can see we've got one person that's identified themselves as a patient or a service user. We've got some nursing staff, some pharmacy representation. We've got 4 others, and 4 that have not really given an option in terms of an answer just yet, and that's absolutely fine. But we will be using the polling function throughout the presentation to really get some ideas and suggestions from you as to how we might move forward. So without further ado, it's my absolute pleasure to introduce Arlene Coulson. Arlene's a lead clinical pharmacist who I think is well known to the medicine safety agenda, particularly with us here at Healthcare Improvement Scotland, working on a number of things with us. And it's great to have Arlene here today, and also to welcome Sue Cole, who is a Patient and Public Forum for Medicines representative. And so I'd like to now pass over to Arlene and Sue for their presentation.
Many thanks, David, for the introduction. So yes, I'm a pharmacist, but I chair this Patient and Public Forum that we've had in place since 2014. So if you change the slide, I'll give you a bit more information about what this group looks like. So what our kind of goal and aim is for this to be an expert group of patient and public members in relation to medicines. So it's a focus on medication, and what we're looking to do is to upskill these patients and members of the public so that they are more aware of how medicines are licensed, how they go through various medicines processes like SMC and our formularies, and therefore how they're available to the public. So that's just one aspect of how we want to upskill this group. So currently we have 9 members in the group, and they all are quite representative across Tayside, so Perth, Angus and Dundee. And we've got a kind of core group of 4 members who have been with us for many, many years, since we began in 2014. Now, although I'm saying we kind of formally started this group in 2014, we've been doing some work with this core group for a number of years prior to that, and then we formalised this group in 2014. So the members are a mix of patient and public group partners with an interest in medicines, and that makes up about half the group. And the other half are patient representatives from specialist interest groups. So we've had members from the MS Society, we've got Sue from NRAS, we've had the Parkinson's Disease Society, and we've had the Pain UK Society as well. So we've really tried to mix up the group so we have different perspectives, and we also have patients who can go back and network with their interest groups and spread the word through those networks, you know, from what they're learning that we give them from the group. So it doesn't just stop at them. We really encourage them to sort of spread that knowledge and understanding across all their networks. So we do have a role and remit for the group, but ultimately we try to be as flexible and relaxed as possible for anyone to come and join with an interest in medicines. There's no set length of time that they have to commit to be a member of the group. And we normally set them up with a buddy so that they come and they have some support there. Either they meet with that person before the meeting to find out a bit more about the group. So it's not too formal. We did go down the line of having quite a formal role and remit to begin with, but that was really, I actually think that put people off. When they expressed an interest by email, we would send this kind of formal role and remit. It really it did put people off joining the group. So we tried to be as relaxed and as flexible and, you know, welcoming as we could for people, new members who wish to find out more about the group. So it is a monthly meeting, and every meeting we have at least half an hour of the meeting. It's a total of 2 hours, so at least half an hour of that is about education. And we have speakers who are any of our healthcare professionals across Tayside, where there's developments in any medicines initiative. So there might be a medicines initiative, but there's also presentations that are about giving people knowledge and understanding of the formulary, the role of SMC, introduction of new medicines, also what the roles and responsibilities are of different healthcare professionals, because what we found was that was something that was misunderstood or lack of awareness, was the different roles and responsibilities of even the pharmacy service, from technicians to pharmacists, and all the different sectors from locality, community, hospital. So that was a real insight to the members of the group, and also about non-medical prescribing roles, since this was then becoming quite widespread, both in community and in hospital. So I'll pass you over to Sue, who can give you a little description of her experience since she became a member of the group.
All right, thank you for that, Arlene. Anyways, my name's Sue, and I've been a member of the group since August 2017. And I must say that I was invited to an earlier meeting in June or July just to see how the group worked before having to commit. And I found that very, very useful, and that is something that should be encouraged. I don't come from an academic background, but have experience of living life with a long-term condition and have been a frequent guest of NHS Tayside. By way of a little background, I'm also an NRAS Scottish Ambassador, and last year we set up a Tayside support group at Ninewells, and our guest speaker for June is Gary Cook, who just happens to be a rheumatology pharmacist, and he's going to talk to us about how to take RA drugs effectively and answer any questions or fears we may have about our medication. I find with NRAS and our group, it's very helpful from feeding back to the forum and communicating key messages back to the group. Being a member of the group was also, I was also able to answer one of my questions about the introduction to biosimilars, which a lot of people were really worried about, but being a member of the group and speaking to other people, you know, it has allayed my fears. We have a rolling programme of educational sessions which has grown all our competencies as patients and public advocates in reviewing and giving feedback in relation to medicine development right across NHS Tayside. We're also encouraged to suggest educational sessions that we as a group would find useful. The ongoing programme of presentations and the consultation of the group in matters relating to medicine shows that NHS Tayside takes note of feedback from public partners and patients. Fran, one of our members, found membership of the group has helped her find strengths that she didn't know she had and felt empowered by this. Another member has more confidence to question issues relating to this medicine. At all times during our meetings, it's evident that patient safety is paramount. When we're asked for feedback, for example, the nursing home's medication waste issues, we sort of said, well, why can't medication be put together? And then it's explained to us about prescribed medication only used for the person prescribed. Medicine list at discharge from hospital. Something like a different font size could make all the difference to someone being able to read the information. And this is where we feel that we give our input, and it is valuable. We also were involved in the PAC2 Tier 2 process. And as I say, we are always encouraged to give our views and experiences and do feel empowered to do so. And it's very much, there is also no such thing as a stupid question, which is reassuring for some of us. There's always a two-way flow of information, and the NHS governance is clearly for the benefit of patients throughout. And I personally feel we are a great example of true partnership working. Communication is very important, and plain English and keeping it simple is to be encouraged. Arlene, do you want me to carry on?
Well, we'll pick up on some of those issues on the next slides. So what I'll do is I'll show the group now. David, if you could pass it over, I'll show the intranet or internet site where we host our information, and it's a website specifically for patient and the public members.
Thanks, Arlene. So this is one of our first tests. We're now passing you the ball, and then you should be able to share your screen with everybody on their WebEx. Please let us know if you don't have the ball.
No.
No?
Not yet.
Okay, we'll just...
Yeah, hold on.
Oh, that looks good from my end.
Can you see that?
Absolutely, yes.
Great. Okay. So I will talk you through our internet site, which is on our NHS Tayside webpage. So this is where we host the information about our patient and public group for medicines. This is what you see in front of your screen is the advert, which basically describes to members of the public or patients what the group is about. So we have it quite informal, and it's really for layperson's perspective to work, with us on the safe and effective use of medicines. So it tells people how to apply or for further details. And I'll just give you the full advert, which basically gives you all the information about what it consists of. So it consists of public, patient interest groups, carers, voluntary organisations, the objective view and active advisors, supports and advocates for patients and families. So it's very much quite what skills are required and interest in improving patient experience, time to commit to the group, ability to share your views clearly, good communication skills and enthusiasm and commitment. So make it really quite a friendly advert. And it was actually members of the group that came up with this advert and the content of it. So I didn't write it. This was actually what the group wrote. And what can I expect from the group? Support, appreciation, respect, and valued as a group member, help with jargon. In fact, jargon was quite an interesting topic that came up quite a bit throughout some of the meetings over the years. And then you'll have papers before the meeting and relevant information and training opportunities. So this is some of the quotes from some of the patient public members so far. I didn't have an appreciation for the diverse range of services that pharmacy offer across community and hospital. Another one was I had to pause the TV the other day when the BBC News was describing a cancer drug that didn't get approved, and I could explain to my husband what a quality is, which was quite impressive. I didn't know I could ask to speak to a pharmacist at my GP practice. I didn't appreciate the length of training about medicines a pharmacist has to go through to be able to practice. And I wouldn't hesitate now to go to my local pharmacist for advice. So that's quite pharmacist focused because quite a bit of the work at that time was in relation to educating about the roles and responsibility of pharmacists. So it encompasses everything in relation to medicines. So I shall I'm going to go back to the website to show you. Going to show you where the educational presentations are kept. So, and anyone can access this. This is available to anyone. It's on the internet. So here this is just some of the presentations that they've given, but different roles of the pharmacy technician roles, hospital pharmacies, what licensing of medicines, SNC and local formulary review of new medicines, antimicrobial update as well, the insulin prescription administration record, minimising avoidable waste, the role of community-based technicians and clinical trials, what are medicines information services, and the yellow card scheme. So you can see there's quite a breadth of education that's gone in over the years, and I will give taster sessions again just for updates, just as reminders for the members of the group, because it's just, in order to retain some of that, it does involve repetition. So that's where we host all our educational presentations. So any members of the public can access that information and look through it at home. So it's available to everybody. Right, so David, I'll just go back. I will stop sharing and I'll pass back to you. Okay, so that's where the website is hosted. The members of the group also are involved in communicating key messages to the public, so around initiatives such as Medicines Waste campaign, and they're also involved in local and national medicines events. And we'll go into more detail on the next few slides. If we move on to the next slide.
So Arlene, thanks for that. Can I just check that you can see also now that we're on polling question 2?
Yes.
Excellent. So we're happy to, again, we'll introduce the poll, and Kirsty is going to open the poll just shortly. So we're really interested to hear from everybody on the call in terms of what is the most common method for the voice of the patient and public to be heard in your board or where you work in relation to medicines and medicine safety. So there are a number of options here in terms of either hearing through local feedback mechanisms, either through complaints and compliments, and it's always good to have the positive voice when things go well. B, expert patient and public groups. C, public consultation meetings. D, local patient and public partner representatives on an ad hoc basis. E, when you have those representatives in regular attendance at meetings and events. F, minimal opportunity for the voice of the public to be heard, or G, other, and we're really keen to discuss those at the end. So there are a number of options to choose, so I'll let you take your time to read through, and again, looking at how patients and public's voice are heard where you work in relation to medicine safety. Oh, I'm not sure, are we able to rerun that poll, just out of curiosity, just because it seemed to have closed rather quickly? So again, thank you for your patience in learning with our testing. So we'll see if we can do that again. I'm wondering while we wait if we can potentially use the chat box to get some feedback. I'm just wondering, oh, it looks like the poll's gone off, so it may be able to be reintroduced. So let's see if this one works. But again, it's looking at how, where you work, the voice of public and patients are being heard in relation to medicine safety. So the poll's now open. So if we can again ask you to select one of the options that are available there for you. Okay. So thank you all for participating in the poll, and it will probably just take a couple of seconds for us to have the results of that poll displayed on screen. But again, okay, and Arvin, thank you. I know you've used the chat box as another response, and it might be worth picking that up actually. Only what trickles backwards from the occasional patient and family comments. Okay, so you can see there, and Arlene, I wondered if you want to reflect on those. We've got some quite a range of results coming back in.
Yeah. See, the top one I expected, I thought would be complaints and compliments. But I'd be interested in finding out what other expert patient and public groups there are out there. And then the regular attendance, whether that's, you know, DPC and how that all works and connects with the wider organisation in comparison to what we have, which I'll go on to explain in the next few slides. So this is where we are. So we have 9 expert group of patients in the public in relation to medicines at the moment. And we have been developing their understanding of all medicines processes over the last 4 years. And this, I think, has really helped to get us onto another level where the input is about promoting patient empowerment and self-management of medicine. So the input that we can see over the last 2 to 3 years has been on a different level to where we were back in 2014. So they are taking their own topics and themes of where they feel that gaps exist within NHS Tayside and taking those to our ADTC meetings. Self-administration of medicines is one, for example. But in terms of patient empowerment, you know, the group have really been involved in scoping out how what happens at discharge from hospital, around what process, what information they've been given at discharge about their medicines and in what format, and also about how the supply of medicines is given to the patient as well. So these are the 2 things that really matter. And so they've really been working hard around some of these with the teams in NHS Tayside. So we have also, in relation to just in clinical areas. When they're developing anything in relation to medicines, they also come and present what they're doing to the group and get feedback. One of the latest ones was antimicrobials, where they had a patient information leaflet about the risks of increased use of antibiotics. So the group were able to give feedback around some of that and what that meant to read, you know, what the big impact was of that. And also the insulin prescription administration record as well, in terms of self-administration of their insulin when they're inpatient in hospital. So as part of, we always, from two members of the group are representatives on the Area Drug and Therapeutics Committee. And our PrEP, Patient and Public Forum for Medicines group, is a subgroup of the EDTC, and I'll show you the structure of that in a minute. Sue, do you want to talk about how you feel the group helps with your input at ADTC and how you feel your input in ADTC is?
Yes, certainly. When I was invited to join the ADTC, I didn't have any reservations, as another member of our group, Fran, was already a member and acted in the role of a buddy. Not being an academic could easily be intimidating for someone to have to walk into a room of consultants and medical people. Especially, as I say, the first meeting was in the NHS Tayside boardroom. The last meeting that I was at, the main thing that was discussed was the single formulary. That seems to be a good discussion for debate at the moment. And again, with the ADTC, there is extensive reading material, but Fran and I support each other. But I must admit, I'm still learning all the abbreviations, but I am getting there. And what Fran and I do, we report back to the public forum of what's been discussed and if there's any feedback. And again, it's like a two-way street as well, that if there's anything that the group is worried about, that we can pass that information on. And it seems to work very well at the moment.
Thanks for that, Sue. Right, I think this might be a good time to play the short video of the Patient and Public Forum. It's the YouTube clip.
Thank you. So we'll just do that now.
Perfect, thanks.
We are getting there, guys. Apologies. It would just be 2 seconds away, I'm sure.
Well, I was diagnosed with MS in September of last year. And after that diagnosis, I obviously reached out to places like the MS Society, MS Trust and the MS Therapy Centre, and I became a member of the MS Society, and it was through the MS Society that they actually referred me to see if I was interested in joining this group, and that's why I'm here today. Well, I think, again, on two different levels. From a personal point of view, I've found it actually, as it's given me confidence, I feel a bit more empowered. Information that I just wasn't aware of. I feel more able to discuss things with my GP and my consultant, my MS nurse. And also on the level of one of the information sessions we had was about the SMC and the process, new medications. taken so long, 13 years, etc., and about just about how you qualify for medication and the difference it can make. And one of the evenings after that, I was watching the news and the information came up about a new medication on cancer, and the spokesperson for NICE was saying about the QALY, and I actually paused it, rewound it, and showed my husband through and said, listen to this, because I know what he's talking about by a QALY. So I just felt that it's just something that I was never aware of, and all of a sudden I understood just a wee bit more of what the SMC and everything is all about. There's two different ways. Informally, I speak to people at the MS Therapy Centre. I mean, I go there 2 or 3 times a week for various therapies. And just by the very nature of myself, I just kind of impart what I've been learning. But early in the new year, through the MS Society, I'll be preparing a kind of more formal, not presentation, but just a more formal kind of feedback about all the information I've discovered in the last few months.
So Arlene, it's over to you.
Perfect. Thank you, David. So I hope you could all hear that clip, that video from Fran, who's been a member of the group since 2014. So she just described in her own words, and this video was done by the Scottish Health Council, so we've collaborated with them and they produced this video with us. And actually, she'll be able to give you a bit more detail of how it's enhanced her journey and through her personal and medical journey over the last few years. There's been even more development on that since she's been getting involved at a local and national level. So I'll talk more about that in the next few slides. So if we go on to the next slide, this is just to show you what our structure of the EDTC medicines governance looks like. And down in the bottom right-hand corner is where the patient and public reference group or forum sits, alongside all the other subgroups within the EDTC. Now, on these groups, we will sometimes get members from the Patient and Public Forum to sit on some of these meetings, like Sue was at the Medicines Advisory Group meeting this week, and we also get members to go to the Medicine Safety Group as well, just when there's topics of discussion or if there's workshops going on and we need a patient representative, then we'll basically use our group as the experts to go and give some input to that. Thank you. Let's move to the next slide. Which is a polling question.
It is indeed. We have another polling question. We are testing with bells and whistles on today. So from an improvement perspective, when we start testing, we want to start small, but no, we have videos, we have polling questions, we have everything. So we're really, to introduce the third polling question, again, we're keen to get an understanding of how patients and the public are supported to be part of local governance and improvement groups with a focus on medicine safety. So there are a couple of options here to pick from. Are they supported through local education sessions, or B, a buddy system with health professionals, C, a buddy system with other patient and public representatives, or D, there is no support in place for public and patients, and other, and we can discuss that at an end. So Kirsty, if you wouldn't mind opening that. So again, we've got a couple of options for you to choose from in terms of how patients and the public are supported to be part of the governance and improvement groups. Excellent. So that's the poll closed, and again, from our learning, a couple of seconds it takes to actually then display the results. But I can tell you now there's going to be a couple of others pressed as well, because I indeed pressed one. But we're really interested to see the results, and then we'll hand back to Arlene in terms of your reflections once they're available. So Arlene, I'm really keen to hear your thoughts, and before we do that, I'm also aware that there are quite a number of people that haven't been able to answer the poll, and that's perhaps due to timing. And Arvin, you've just said it cut out before you had a chance to put one in, so we'll take that as part of our learning as well. But Arlene, over to you.
Yep, that's an interesting poll, so we can discuss more of that detail at the end around what education is given in other boards. I'd be interested to see, and any other ideas that people have. Okay, so we'll move on to the next slide. So this is just a summary of all the different roles that we have for our patient and public members. So they give feedback on educational materials, not just at a local level, but we've also been doing that at a national level for HIS, the medicines leaflet there, but also for the recent PACS patient information leaflet. The group have been involved in giving feedback nationally. Attendance at the different meetings, both locally and nationally. So Fran has been involved in many an SPSP Medicines conference, both as a facilitator and a speaker, and also she's been at the public open events for the single national formulary, which has been a mixture of healthcare professionals and patients in the public, and she's been there as a patient representative. They're also involved in testing materials for development of patient apps. So the polypharmacy app that's about to be launched nationally, there's a patient forum part, which is for the patient to observe and view and talk themselves through different questions. Well, the group were there to give feedback to the company around that. Developing information for the public access website, well, we've seen the content of that. Recording of video clips and patient scenarios, I'll show you another one further on in this presentation. And also raising issues from a patient's perspective, for example, the medicines waste agenda and the discharge process. So would you like to talk a little bit more about the medicines waste in relation to our recent presentation that we had in relation to inhalers?
Yes, this was our last meeting actually, and we had somebody from the pharmacy team talking about the cost of inhalers, and the group came up with, we came up with lots of ideas, and it was just interesting listening, from the pharmaceutical or from the pharmacy side. About the waste, because we had no idea, I don't think anybody in the group actually had any idea of the actual waste that takes place. But at our next meeting on Tuesday, our next forum meeting on Tuesday, we've actually got Dr. Michelle Watts is going to seek the group's help in running a campaign about medicine prescribing waste, variation and the harm project. So it is exciting times, and it is an opportunity for people to get involved.
Yeah, no, that's great. I mean, Dr. Michelle Watts, who's our Associate Medical Director for Primary Care, has made contact individually with Sue and Fran as members of the ADTC and our Patient and Public Forum group. So she's coming to attend our next meeting to see how the group can be involved in some of the changes that are going to happen in primary care, and how they can be involved in communicating that out to the public through social media and our communications team. So it's quite an exciting time for the group. So I think we're going to move to another level soon.
Yes, and I think it was interesting some of the things that we actually come up with, because we were sort of talking about prescriptions. Should you put the cost of the medicine on the prescription so that the person is aware of how much it costs? Would it make them, take it, because there seems to be an awful lot of wastage whereby people don't follow the advice of the doctor, take the prescription but don't actually use it. And at the moment the big topic at the moment seems to be banning plastic straws, and I think by bringing the waste, medicine waste to the front, it can only be a good thing, because we all have, if we're taking medication, plastic pulpits and foil and plastic. Should we go back to using bottles? I hate to say, like in the olden days, where it was all little brown bottles and things like that. But I really don't think people realise, you know, what the actual waste is, and I think they'd be quite horrified.
And I think, Sue, you were saying yourself that even the disposal of medicines and the education around that was new to you, around returning your medicines to the pharmacy.
Yes.
So that they would be incinerated and they shouldn't be flushed down the toilet, for example. I think this must go on. You know, Sue's really been that's been quite insightful for you, hasn't it?
Yes, it has. And again, when I talk to people, I'm involved with a pastoral walking group. People, they're just not aware of it. It's not that they don't want to do it. It's just not on their radar at the moment. And a lot of people, you know, when I've spoken to, and you know, said you can take it back. You know, you can take the, you know, your empty canisters and that back to the chemist so it can be disposed of correctly. And as I say, some of them, once it's brought to their attention and they realise, you know, that they can do things like that, you know, I'm sure there's a large population that will actually do their best.
That's great, Sue. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide. This next slide was way back in 2014 when we did a medicine safety campaign in NHS Tayside. And what we did was we asked members of the public what were their sort of 5 key things that they would like to know more about their medication, or what gives them, what are the risks, what makes them, you know, keep awake at night, kind of questions. And so these questions were developed by actual patients, and the group then worked on the wording and developed these cards way back in 2014. And we had a campaign where we would speak to members of the public, and that's a picture of one of our members there, Jim, next to all the materials that we had during that campaign week. And it was very successful, and we were really pleased that NHS Scotland decided to make these and produce them for the rest of Scotland for patients, because these were the key questions that patients didn't know to ask about their medication. So it's all, as Sue was saying, I think we assume patients know what they should and shouldn't do, or what they should and shouldn't ask. But actually we need to give them the tools and the information. There is a lot of education required around what they should and shouldn't do. So that card was designed in order to give patients the key questions. If they're started a new medicine, what should I find out about it? Either from the doctor, the pharmacist, the nurse, any healthcare professional. These are the questions I should know. Okay, so if we move on to the next slide. So this is a summary of the local medicines-related initiatives. So the group have been heavily involved with medicines reconciliation over the years and helped with the development of the policy. Mentioned the local campaign, and I've mentioned the discharge information about the medicines and how that supply is made from hospital. So that's been a kind of long-term development and progression over the years. In relation to high-risk medicines, the IPAR has been a key part of the development over the years in terms of the patient's perspective of the IPAR, as well with our local medicines chart, the TPAR, that's also been taken to the group, and the polypharmacy app and sick day rule cards, because that was developed and tested in NHS Tayside as well, using renal patients, but also with our patient and public group. We took that card to consult and ask them if they could understand it. So it was really helpful from that perspective to get feedback, good feedback nationally as well. Okay, can we turn to the next slide? So omitted medicines, that's another high agenda medicines topic that we have in NHS Tayside. So we've had our patient and public group just recently develop a flow chart for what the process should be for a medicine that is missed in hospital, and what the patient's responsibilities are in relation to that. So we're asking the patient and public group to come up with what their responsibilities are if you were a patient and your medicine was to be missed for any reason. Obviously if it's appropriate at the time. And also they're going to participate in a staff workshop. This is where you know, multi-professionals are going to come together and to look at these flow charts and look at our omitted medicines and how we can move forward with improvements. Medicines waste has been an ongoing theme as well. So we've had various campaigns. Let's Talk Medicines campaign has been a recent one. And we have a video that we can play, another video. If I could pass over to David, please.
Thanks, Arlene. We'll see how we go. I'm just also conscious of time and the fact that we're really keen to make sure there's some opportunity for discussion, Arlene. So we may play this video, but we may have to skip the next poll and question, if that's okay with you.
Yeah.
Okay. So we're just setting up the video now, and again, so this is our second lesson in testing, so here we go. Thanks, Arlene.
Many thanks. Okay, so that was a recent medicines awareness campaign. So we'll move slides in the interest of time, and I'll just pick up on some of the things that we've not mentioned already. Okay, so we have had Fran and Sue, our patient members, also tune into this monthly SPSP WebEx over the last few months. So that's been a recent development and input into this, which has been great. If we move on to the next slide. This is, instead of engaging healthcare professionals in quality and safety, this is about engaging patients in medicine safety. So we've built that with the Patient and Public Forum group over the years and updated it and worked on it. So I'll not go into too much detail, but that's there for anybody to have a look at. So if we move on to the next slide, this is our future path. So what we would really like to achieve from this group is to upskill the general public, not just that core group, but we'd like members of the public to have just as much knowledge and awareness as these members. We want them to help with this communication plan, to upskill members of the public through communication out to members of the public about our medicines initiatives and key things that they should know. Continue to promote patient empowerment and also promote the patient access to the information about them and their medicines. That is a real key to patient empowerment. And more clarity for members of the public about the roles and responsibilities of the different healthcare professionals and where to seek advice. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much, Arlene, and thank you, Sue, for your time and your reflections today. It's fantastic. For those that have been watching the chat box, there's been quite a bit of comments in terms of the positivity and positive reflections on the impact of this.
Your line has been unmuted.
And I've just shared in the chat box as well from the stakeholder event earlier this year that we hosted around some of the key improvement activities that were identified related to empowering patients and people with their medicines. And it's just an interesting reflection of just how many of those improvement activities this group itself seems to be able to address. So that's just a reflection from me. I'm just wondering now, we will unmute all the lines to allow discussion. That's probably why you're hearing a little bit more background noise and someone's clearly having a good time. But Daryl, I'm just wondering, I wanted to come to you. You've commented first of all in terms of the usefulness of hearing this presentation today, but you've also got a specific question around the involvement of this group with community pharmacy and GPs. Did you want to expand on that?
Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Indeed, yes. Yeah.
I suppose I'm a hospital pharmacist, and I know this is something that we're really poor on, and we're, I suppose, looking at this in terms of what matters to you, and I know we're years behind what you've done, Arlene. But I suppose, how do you does that group have representation from the board or community pharmacy or GPs? I know the last video it did show community pharmacy.
Yeah, so what we're doing is most of our medicines initiatives are happening in community pharmacy or in primary care somewhere. So that's where most of the developments are going, and that's why the Associate Medical Director is coming to our next meeting to really see what engagement this group can provide them as they move forward with developments around medicines waste, switching of patients' medicines, the new GP contracts, things like that, that's going to impact on patients and their medicines. So some of that work we're just at the initial stages of, but over the past few years we've had community pharmacy speakers come to the group. We've got community pharmacy representation on the ADTC. So there's been various avenues where the patients and public members have been involved in primary care initiatives, but we really need to enhance that now with so much change going on. So we're going to start now a new development around a more proactive approach to getting information out to members of the public about what's happening at their GP practices.
Thank you.
Thanks, Darryl, and thanks, Arlene. I'm just wondering that might pick up on the question that Mark has just typed into the chat box, and that's probably focusing a bit more on how you're thinking you might go about that in terms of upskilling the general public and more to do with the primary care element of the work.
Well, we've tested that out with this Let's Talk Medicines video. So I think we'd want to do more videos like that, but I think as we've come a long way in the last 4 years, and I think the group understand now what's missing, what knowledge is missing from the general public. So I think we probably have the theory, and it's basically, I think we're going to have to explore lots of different avenues through social media and our comms team around what that might look like. But I think it should come from members of that group, rather than in the past it's been healthcare professionals promoting what's going on. But what we want to do is change that to members of the public, telling members of the public what the changes are in their words, and describing it as a member of the public. And we think that will have greater impact.
Thanks, Arlene. And I guess reflecting on Daryl's comment, and I appreciate your honesty, Daryl, and the fact that you were admitting there's probably some work to do where you are in terms of engaging patients and progressing to a level where NHS Tayside is. And I guess we were really keen to share and invite Tayside to come and share their approach to really continue that conversation after the WebEx to learn what are other boards doing in this particular area. Now, I know, Arlene, you're really keen to make contact and connect with other similar groups across the country, and we'd offer to help make those contacts. So my question to everybody else on the call is to get in touch to let us know what the current status would be. And I know that Arlene would be more than happy to share as much as they already have on the WebEx, if that would help get some kind of group off the ground, if that wasn't in place already. So that's a question that we put to the group. And for those that are listening to the recording, again, we'd welcome you to get in touch with us in terms of either to let us know what's in place, but if there is an interest in actually setting up something like it that's already in place in Tayside, and how we might be able to support you to do that. Are there any other burning questions? I know, Arvind, you've just asked, and I know you've been very quiet here, but you've asked about the costs of the work and where does the budget come from. Can I just check, is it in terms of the group support, or is the things that are going more publicly planned, Arvind?
Yes, thank you, David. Sorry, I was unmuting when I missed the last bit. But yes, what struck me was this is a piece of work that, from what Arlene had said initially, seems to have taken some time, and then there's much more. I think in the last couple of years, I think Arlene said the patient and public group is inputting more into the different medicines groups, and has been clearly very helpful and very valuable. But that work started in 2014, and I'm wondering about the costs of this, and how is that paid for? Is that something that NHS Tayside fully supports, and how would other boards take it up?
Yeah, that's a good question. It is mainly supported by the pharmacy service in terms of the like the minute taking, the agenda setting. So all the administrative side does, it's our pharmacy secretaries that do that. And we also have obviously my time, which is a monthly meeting, and another member of the pharmacy team. And in terms of travel expenses, then we have patient and public group partners that gets paid by NHS Tayside anyway, because every board has their own patient and public group partners, so they fund that travel for that side of the membership. The other side of travelling expenses is funded by pharmacy for the specialist interest groups. So there is a cost to it, but you know it's not a large cost, if you like. And I have a passion. I've always had a passion for engaging with patients in the public and to upskill them. So I naturally kind of fitted into this role, you know, over the years, and I think it's helped that there's been somebody consistent over the years. But yeah, it's been my investment in time, but we've not had it officially funded by NHS Tayside.
Well, thank you for it. It's a great piece of work. Thank you.
Thanks, Arvind. I am aware of the time, but I guess I think it's fair to say that what you shared has probably inspired a number of people into action in terms of where they could get to, and it's probably really important also to acknowledge that this is something from your perspective, Arlene and Sue, that didn't happen overnight, but what started off as a particular group to support a specific support for patients getting involved in ADTCs has broadened quite a lot, and you've actually got quite a number of key stakeholders and senior people coming to this group for advice and input. So again, a reflection for me of just how powerful that type of group has become, and it really does reinforce quite a lot of improvement activities that were identified at the stakeholder group that we hosted earlier in February this year. So thank you both again for your time and your presentation today. We're really keen to keep that conversation going after the WebEx, particularly if there's an interest in terms of how we might support other boards going about setting up these types of groups or further enhancing something that may already exist. So before we do go, I'd like to boldly promote in terms of where we are heading in this year in terms of the WebEx series. So if you could just go to the next slide, please. In terms of the WebEx series, we've committed, for those that were with us last month, to focus on the 6 key levers that were identified at the stakeholder event earlier this year, looking at patient empowerment, which we focused on today, looking at how we might improve work processes, recognition for excellence, looking at digital systems or IT, education and QI support. And one of the fundamental things around work processes was really a fundamental understanding of who does what, or looking at roles and responsibilities. So as terms of what we might reflect on for next month, we have invited NHS Grampian to share with us under the topic of models of care, so more colloquially known as who does what. But it's looking at the primary care sector in terms of different models of care and different health professionals working together to support safer use of medicines in the context of high-risk medicines and particularly medicines reconciliation, but also general services around helping patients manage their medicines once they've left hospital. So it's an absolute pleasure that NHS Grampian, we've invited them to come and speak next June. I'll notice the date, please, it's the 28th of June rather than the third Thursday of the month. So we've committed to make sure that all of our WebEx that we cover for the next 12 months focus really on those core 6 levers that we've identified that stakeholder event. So without further ado, thank you again to Arlene and thank you, Sue, for your time. And we look forward to having you again with us on the 28th of June, where we'll explore different models of care in terms of supporting the safer use of medicines. So thank you all again for your time. It's been a great WebEx.